This is The Weekly Set, the official podcast of TVEnthusiast.com. With your host, Tyson Gifford and William Roerick. Episode 118, recorded July 27th, 2017. Hello, everybody, and welcome to The Weekly Set, the official podcast of TVEnthusiast.com. I am your host, the editor-in-chief of TV Enthusiast. My name is Tyson, and joining me today, as always, is my co-host here on The Weekly Set, William Roerick.
Hello.
And joining us as a special guest today on the podcast, TVE writer Mike Bacher.
How's everybody doing tonight?
So today we are going to talk about some Comic-Con news, and we're also going to go over Game of Thrones and Twin Peaks, the latest episodes of each. Starting off with Comic-Con, we were going to go over a bunch of news and stuff and kind of just decided there wasn't a lot really all that interesting at this Comic-Con. There were just a few things to talk about, so we just decided to kind of focus in on those. So starting things off, Stranger Things. Amazing trailer, I think. Will wasn't able to watch it because he still hasn't finished Stranger Things.
Shame.
Oh, come on, really?
Shame. I know.
Oh,
it's on my backlog.
It's like a year old, man.
And it's only like 8 episodes, right? So
I'll have it finished by the time season 2 comes out, for sure.
You watch one episode a month until.
I am like 5 episodes into it, so already.
Right.
So.
Okay, but I thought the trailer was amazing. I love the use of Michael Jackson's Thriller, especially that it was the Vincent Price part of that song. Perfectly fitting.
Yeah, I was actually surprised they picked it, but I thought they would have went with the Ghostbusters theme song, considering the entire trailer had them set up in the Ghostbusters with the power packs, but it blended pretty well.
Yeah, it's also nice because, I mean, they're doing the whole Ghostbusters thing for Halloween, because this season takes place around Halloween.
Yeah.
So it was kind of nice to use Thriller in conjunction with kind of like the Halloween setting of the show. It kind of really made it fit. Will's, the visions he's getting now are looking pretty crazy.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on with Will. I don't know, the demon slugs kind of got me, the kind of, I don't know if, is he turning into a slug, or is he just got him left over from the giant tentacle that was down his throat, or what? It's going to be hard to tell.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to watch, and the kind of visions he's having now are kind of epic compared to like season 1. So I'm really looking forward to how that's going to pay off.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think this was easily my favorite trailer of the bunch.
Yeah, especially with we saw it earlier back at the first teaser trailer, but it was just like a quarter of a second, the Tessa Hydra, the giant spider monster that came out. But we got to see a little bit more of this one, so I'm curious how they're going to do that.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting because we know we see it in like vision form, but we don't know where we see it beyond that, what part it plays amongst the greater story of everything. We'll have to watch in the first episode and see what they're doing in their current D&D game.
The one thing that they actually mentioned, which is pretty cool, is Paul Reiser is actually taking over as like the head of the energy department now, and he's going to be in charge like the quote unquote cleanup after the end of the first season. But the funny thing is, they said that they interviewed David Harbour, and he said that the main inspiration for season 2 is going to be the movie Aliens, which of course Paul Reiser was in, and they said they're actually going to take a lot of the parts of Sigourney Weaver and Aliens and just recreate them pretty much frame by frame, but instead of Sigourney Weaver, it's going to be David Harbour's character, and they're going to try. It was like a challenge David Harbour said at Comic-Con if they could to see how many of those scenes you could actually pick out as a viewer.
They did that a lot in the first season. You could pick out clips from various movies and stuff. There was the shot with the bike and the kids in the distance that was reminiscent of E.T. There were a few kind of copied shots like that as homages. So it's always cool when they do something like that. Cause that's kind of what Stranger Things is. It's like a nostalgia play, but it's a nostalgia play that's using nostalgia as like a shorthand.
Right.
In its process of storytelling, which is really fascinating. But yeah, I mean, they're bringing in the 80s icons for this season because they have Paul Reiser and they also have Sean Astin.
Yeah, he's actually plays with Joyce, Will's mom's like new boyfriend in this one. So I was curious to see if David Harbour's gonna like maybe hit him with a punch or two by the end of the season.
Yeah, there's got to be something like corrupt or wrong about him that we don't know about yet.
I don't know. He's always going to be Mikey to me from Goonies, regardless of whatever part he plays. So I don't know. I'm sure he'll be good, but he's always going to be Mikey to me.
Next up, the Psych trailer. Mike, did you watch Psych?
Yes, I did. I watched the first 2 seasons. After that, I kind of pretty much fell off and just caught like scattered ones here and there.
Yeah. Will, you've watched about the same. Just kind of watched it off.
Yeah, I've seen Skype. Again, like Mike, I've seen. I've watched scattered episodes. It was like one of those things where when you catch it on, you watch it. But no, I didn't keep super track of it. But yeah, I like that show. It's entertaining.
Psych's early seasons kind of fell into that, pre or early DVR time period where people were just kind of like catching stuff as they could.
Right. Yeah. It was mostly before I got DVR.
The youngins don't know the struggle.
Yeah.
But I was a huge Psych fan. The Psych trailer just reminded me how much I loved Psych. It was great. It was just like basically just the 2 leads going back and forth, like trying to stretch their psych muscles, the little weird kind of behaviors they have in that show, and trying to kind of get them up to par like they're doing Psych again. And it's kind of like it's reminding you what Psych is, like what the actual quality of the show is, not just the premise. I
loved Corbin Burnson in Psych too, is the cop who's like that old salty cop dad, like he doesn't care about psychics or private detectives. It kind of played off his kids. Like it was almost ironic considering he's the one that taught his kid to be the way he is with, pretty much observation and observing everything. And yet he wasn't able to detect that his son was using his own, basically, I want to say quote unquote tricks against him and pretending he was a psychic.
Yeah. I really liked, Timothy Amundsen as well, who played, Carlton Lassiter on the show. Unfortunately, his part in the movie is going to be a bit reduced because the actor suffered a stroke, around the time they were planning, the movie. So he's going to be involved in some way, but he's currently recovering. So, it's sad to not have him involved. And of course, like I heard about that and I was like, oh shit, he had a stroke. It's just not something you want to hear about. He's a good actor and I've enjoyed him in quite a few things. But, last up, we're going to talk about the Flash trailer, which seemed to really, strike your fancy there, Mike.
Yeah, the Flash, I mean, it's ironic because I'm a big DC fan as far as like my favorite superheroes go, but as far as like TV shows, obviously DC wins because Marvel doesn't really have any. But as movies, obviously Marvel blows DC out of the water. That's not even a question. But the Flash has been my favorite one. I watch it with my son all the time. And obviously, if you haven't seen the end of the third one yet, did you guys see it yet? The Comic-Con trailer?
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. It's called the teaser trailer for a reason. And if you've seen the first 3 seasons, you could tell that the scenes they show in the trailer don't happen in the order they show them. Like you can tell, like, when he says he's got at one point you see Cisco and the team come in and he's like, I don't understand why that didn't work. And then you show them they show them later down to drag strip with their gun trying to get quote unquote Barry out of the Speed Force, which I don't think is Barry at that point. I think is Keenan Lysdale who plays Kid Flash, because on the on-set photos show him playing Flash, which the trailer kind of gives away because that samurai, if you read the comics, is nobody other than Baron Katana. And he says in the trailer, bring me the Flash or your city will crumble. And that kind of goes hand in hand with Kid Flash dressed up in the Flash's outfit to kind of, trick him. And I think when he comes back and says that didn't work, even though that takes place before that part down at the drag strip, I think that's going to be after that. That's going to be referring to that part at the drag strip. Now, we know Barry comes out because the season 4 synopsis has already been revealed that he comes out of the Speed Force. But the question is when. My over-under is 6 episodes. I mean, there's 23 in the season. After 6, you're kind of getting in the territory where I'm thinking like fans are going to be like, okay, really? Like, when's Barry going to come out?
I'm going to give it 3 episodes. I've noticed CW shows, they tend to set things up in the finale. Supernatural does this a lot. They set something up in the finale that like changes everything. Something dramatic like this. And then it's resolved within like the first 3 or 4 episodes of the next season, like totally, completely. And then they change gear to a new plot line.
Flash did it last season with Flashpoint. And there were after effects of it, but the main like Flashpoint storyline ended after 1 episode. So it's like, I don't know how long they're going to hold off. The longer they hold off, I think the better. I don't know what they're going to do with that. Cause Flashpoint, I thought that was going to last a bit. And that was like 1 episode and over,
Yeah, that was disappointingly short. I think they could have did more with Flashpoint last season, I thought.
Yeah.
But,
the only thing is Flashpoint is such like a long arcing story that they kind of they basically had to abbreviate it to fit into the season.
Right, exactly. Yeah. It was either like dedicate the season or most of the season to Flashpoint or abbreviate it so that they could do the stuff that they wanted to do with Savitar. Yeah, I get that. And funny enough, a Flashpoint was actually announced as a film that Warner Brothers is doing, the Flash film.
Yeah, that's going to be the title for it, yeah.
Yeah.
What do you think about that, Mike? Because Will and I have talked about that, about how, they're paralleling the TV shows with the movies for DC, so directly that like we were both kind of disappointed in that. It's like, yeah, you can do Flash, but, does it have to be Barry Allen? There's like other Flashes,
There is, but he's like the most famous one. I mean, you already had, you had Bart Allen in Smallville. So, I mean, but that was how many years ago? And Jay Garrick, nobody really knows. And, I mean, Barry Allen, regardless of whatever, any Flash timeline, Barry Allen's like, he's the Flash. Like, Barry Allen is the Flash, as like Clark Kent is the Superman. He's the one who most familiar.
Flash that approaches his popularity would be Wally West. They could get away with doing Wally West in the films, I think, because to me, I think that character is just as popular.
I don't think, even though it's titled Flashpoint, I don't think the film will go into the Flashpoint storyline, only because he's still like a kid in the Justice League movie. We haven't seen them, and obviously DC is playing catch up to Marvel. They're doing Justice League and then all the individual films first in order to play catch up because they started much later. But the only thing is, right now, the Flash we know now is like a kid. He doesn't know how to use his powers. Doesn't really know how to do anything. So he's going to go to that, from that to all of a sudden, bending the space-time continuum in one movie. That's kind of like a long, that's like a long gap to bridge. I mean, even the TV show didn't do that until, picture the TV show starting that with Grant Gustin in season 1 with Flashpoint.
Yeah, that would be weird.
Yeah, that's, I don't know.
I don't know what they're doing with that, to be honest. That's going to be kind of strange.
Yeah, it might be Flashpoint in just title, and perhaps it could be something where he's goaded into a similar situation, maybe not to the same extent, with the Reverse Flash being his antagonist. But I don't know. It's too close of a parallel, There's a lot of people that are upset that they didn't just use Grant Gustin for the Justice League movie. I understand that, but it just feels like you're creating a point of confusion when you had Flashpoint just came out last year as a Flash season, and then you have your next movie being called Flashpoint. I mean, I guess in one sense you kind of you can go in expecting that we're gonna know more about the subject material, but it's still a little weird that, Flashpoint just ended last season and now we're getting a Flashpoint movie.
Yeah, it is kind of weird, yeah.
It's a bit close.
It is. Again, I think it's just going to be called Flashpoint for like the name. I don't think they're actually going to do the storyline. They might go into like, maybe like introduce that ability, the idea of that ability towards the end. But I mean, look, I think in the first trailer for Justice League, you already saw him in jail with his dad. So, they're kind of going to breach, take care of that storyline. I doubt he's going to be able to figure out how to go back in time then. It'll probably be like an origin story. And then towards the end of the movie, they'll probably be like, the hell with this. I got to get my dad out and try to, introduce that idea of going back in time, just to get it into our heads.
Okay, so our last piece of news doesn't come from Comic-Con itself. It just happened to leak out right after that, and that is that Matt Groening, of course the creator of The Simpsons and Futurama, has a new fantasy comedy series called Disenchanted coming to Netflix. So we're going to get, whole seasons in a go like we do with Netflix. Without even going into any other details about what this is about, the fact that this is a fantasy series, basically in the vein of Futurama or The Simpsons, on Netflix, is like bigger than anything that was announced at Comic-Con, I think.
Oh yeah, easily. Matt Groening, obviously his works are beloved. Anything from Matt Groening. This sounds fantastic from the description. It's a medieval fantasy comedy. I expect it to have very, very much, it's not very much a Futurama vibe. It sounds like it has like a more cynical vibe than anything else that he's put out to date. So that's going to be fun.
Gotta see how it ties to The Simpsons. That's always going to be the bar, is The Simpsons.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. The main cast is Abby Jacobson, Nat Faxon, and Eric Andre. So, Nat Faxon is a comedy actor. I believe, he did on Married, I think he was a FX series. Eric Andre, of course, the Eric Andre Show, and a bunch of other stuff, including, one of Will's favorite shows, Man Seeking Woman, and, Abby Jacobson, from Broad City. Those are kind of like the main cast members, but also voicing characters, it's John DiMaggio, who does Bender, Billy West, who does a bunch of voices on Futurama.
More important, not Bender. John DiMaggio should always be known as Marcus Phoenix, not Bender.
I prefer to know him as Bender over Marcus Phoenix. Marcus Phoenix is cool, but he doesn't have the charisma of Bender.
Billy West does a bunch of voices on Futurama, including Fry and Professor Farnsworth and Zoidberg. And Maurice LaMarche, I believe, does some voices on Futurama as well. So yeah, it's got a bunch of kind of his kind of stable
mostly Futurama vets.
Yeah. The Simpsons vets, I think they just kind of chill out at home and call in their work every so often. They got the Simpsons money. They don't need to put in too much effort, I don't think, anymore for doing other things.
They have that syndication coming in.
Yeah, lots of money if you're a Simpsons regular.
Cash those fat checks.
But that's it for our news section. Now we're going to be talking about Game of Thrones, specifically Season 7, Episode 2, Stormborn, which was written by Brian Cogman, who wrote The Broken Man last year, and directed by Mark Mylod, who did The Broken Man and No One last year. He did both of those episodes, and he'll be doing this episode and next week's episode, The Queen's Justice, as well.
Screw Theon.
Theon we'll get to towards the end, because we're going to go through semi chronologically through the episode, and what Mike's referring to is towards the end of the episode. But kicking things off, we see a lot of planning going on both Daenerys' side and Cersei's. Cersei is stoking xenophobia. She's trying to get people into into a state of xenophobia in order to convince them to go against Daenerys. So the idea of, just the fact that she's the Mad Queen's daughter alone is going to work to her advantage.
She's spreading propaganda,
Yeah.
And, it's pretty standard stuff, foreigners, you want dirty foreigners, raping your daughters, and Cersei, Mad King, make America great again. That kind of stuff.
Jamie's making a more personal case, though, talking to the Tarleys. That's Sam's parents, or Sam's father and brother. And Jamie's asking him to become their head general, because Tarley's kind of a known general. He was actually on the Targaryen side in Robert's Rebellion, but he's a very well respected, and they want to bring him into this war.
Jamie points out he's one of the only men who's bested Robert Baratheon in combat. which not even the Mad King's son,
Rhaegar,
Rhaegar, who's extremely skilled warrior, could do. So they point that out as like a major, as a major achievement. Like, this guy is a real deal badass. He also happens to be Samwell's dad. We met him last season. He is not a nice person.
He's a very unpleasant person.
A very unpleasant person, especially to his own kid.
Samwell, at least. Not to his own son, but yeah, so Jaime's kind of making a play for him. He's telling him, we'll make you Warden of the South, and, kind of going on the same xenophobia that Cersei is, that saying that, do you want to join a side where you're going to have Dothraki soldiers and Unsullied invading your land? Right. From there, we move on. We see a little bit of Daenerys' side of the planning, with Tyrion, along with Illyria Sand and, the Tyrells, or Olenna Tyrell, talking strategy. Immediately, Illyria Sand and Olenna Tyrell, they have very clear motives of what they want out of this war. Olenna just wants Cersei to burn. She just wants to punish Cersei. That's all she cares about. And the Sands, obviously, they don't trust Tyrion because he's a Lannister, and they just kind of want to do their thing and just be reckless in their own way. Daenerys and Tyrion have a plan, though. They want to use the Unsullied to take out Castle Rock. And then at the same time, they want to have Westerosi forces invade the other areas around King's Landing. So as not to basically fall into the trap that Cersei's setting by talking about foreigners coming into our land that she was doing before. They want to make it about Westerosis fighting other Westerosi. What's interesting here is that if the Unsullied are going to attack Castle Rock, if you remember, Tyrion was put in charge at Castle Rock of the sewage system of it. So he basically knows every nook and cranny of that castle, even more so than Jaime or Cersei would, because he knows how the thing's piped. Right. So this gives him a huge advantage towards taking that. And if you've seen the trailers, you've seen the invasion of Castle Rock already. It seems like it's kind of one-sided.
I mean, obviously, you could see the kind of the writing on the wall, how the battle's going to go down. I think Cersei's going to, totally lose, but she's definitely going to lose overall against Daenerys and Jon Snow. I think they're going to end up at the end of the season, before we go into the whole thing, where it's going to end where Jon Snow, like the last episode, provides proof to everybody of the White Walkers, since nobody's seen it yet, not even Daenerys. And then everyone's going to be like, all right, now we got to get on the same side heading into the final 6 episodes, whenever they are next year or late next year.
Do you think both sides, Cersei's side and Daenerys' side, are going to last through the season?
I don't think Cersei's side will.
Yeah, well, I definitely don't think Cersei's going to die. There's no way she's going to die this season. She's going to definitely make it through. And I think at my end game prediction is there's 3 dragons, and the 3 main people are Daenerys, Jon Snow, and Tyrion. And my bet is, dollars to donuts, that each one of them is going to be riding a dragon together come like before the last episode.
Interesting thing they foreshadowed. So they showed off a weapon this episode.
Yeah, the ballista.
That can kill dragons. Like they kind of.
I just felt instant dread the second that came on screen.
Yeah. I don't think that's going to happen, though. No, because I think what they said is true. Like, they're not going to roll in there with dragons right off the gate, because that's what Tyrion even said. That's what Cersei expected. And he was right, because they had Cersei say that right before she did. And I think they're going to roll in there and take the city. And after they take the city, they'll bring the dragons in. So they'll kind of have already, seized that ballista to kind of before anything goes down.
That's one way of seeing it, but on the other hand, after the war strategy meeting, Daenerys talked to Olenna by herself, and Olenna said that Daenerys needs to act more like a dragon, and she said that she knows clever men and that Tyrion's a clever man, but she survived this long by not listening to clever men.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So she's placing seeds of doubt in Daenerys' mind as far as following Tyrion's plan. And Olenna's basically saying, make a big dramatic entrance. Show up on dragons and cause a big disruption and set fear into the hearts of the enemy soldiers and forces.
I predict Daenerys is going to at least lose one of her dragons this season. because Game of Thrones, this show has always been kind of a glass half empty show.
But the good thing is, at least you know it's not going to be Drogon. It can't be.
Right. I don't think it will be Drogon.
It'll be Viserion because it's the one named after her brother.
The only reason I mean I get that too. The only reason I don't think that's going to happen is because it seems obvious that's going to happen, and that's never what Game of Thrones does.
Right.
Game of Thrones is big into audience contempt, though, about setting you up to think like, oh, this is going to be amazing, this is going to happen, and then turning around and sabotage.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is something else that happened in this episode. People have been waiting for Arya to reunite with Nymeria, her direwolf, and we catch up with Arya in this episode. She's hanging out with Hot Pie, who, by the way, I just wanted to add in, it came out recently that the actor who plays Hot Pie actually opened a Game of Thrones themed bakery called You Know Nothing John Doe. And he sells direwolf bread.
That is awesome.
So, but anyway, she's hanging out with Hot Pie. You had like the funny joke about where he's talking about using butter in the layers of on a meat pie. And she mentioned, like, I didn't use butter when I made meat pies. Of course, referring to her famous curry pies. She learns that Jon Snow has taken out the Boltons and has reclaimed Winterfell and decides to head up and visit her family. She heads in that direction. They show a carriage going towards King's Landing, and then you see her go off in the opposite direction. In doing so, while she's camping out, she ends up encountering a giant wolf pack, being led by Nymeria. And she has this encounter with Nymeria, and it's a little bit scary, a little bit tense, because, you know, Nymeria is kind of just growling at her, and you're like, oh shit, does she like not remember her? Does she have no bond with her anymore? There's still some memory there. She still remembers her, but she makes it clear, Nymeria does, that this isn't her anymore. That's not the path that she's going to take. She has her wolf pack now. Arya let her go. She's no longer Arya's wolf. And Arya acknowledges that by saying, that's not you anymore, which is a reference to what Arya had said about herself in the first season when Ned Stark had said, oh, you're going to marry a lord and you're going to have all this. And she said, that's not me.
Right.
So, in that same sense, we've been waiting for this reunion with Nymeria for a while. We've known Nymeria is this direwolf that's still out there. And we finally got the reunion only for them to just basically part ways again, which is kind of an example of audience contempt on Game of Thrones.
Yeah, like you said, glass half empty.
We also had Daenerys meets with Melisandre at Dragonstone, and the Red Witch, in other words, and is basically learns about Jon Snow. That Jon Snow is an important figure, that he's, you know, King of the North right now. It was cool kind of seeing Tyrion's reaction to that, knowing, you know, that Tyrion and Jon had met each other before and kind of had like a mutual respect for each other. And Daenerys decides to invite Jon up to visit her and bend the knee. So Jon gets this note. He also gets a letter from Sam telling him about Dragonstone with the dragonglass in Dragonstone. So now he has like a very strong reason to go to Dragonstone and meet with Daenerys, because it's exactly what he's been looking for, and it's a strong ally who has dragons, which would be perfect for his situation. The Northern Lords aren't too keen on this. Even the little bear, who's kind of been his biggest cheerleader, is kind of like not too keen on him going to see Daenerys. Everyone kind of remembers her as the daughter of the Mad Queen rather than as her own person, or like breaker of chains as people in the East have come to know her. And so you have this kind of conflict now again between Jon and the Lords of the North, including Sansa, but Jon says he has to go. He stresses the importance of it. I think a lot of the people in the North, the Lords of the North, they don't quite get that, you know, they're kind of, it's almost like they see Jon Snow's talks about, you know, the White Walkers and the Night King is like this fanciful thing that they have to put up with because they want him as the king.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, he's obviously, you see him show up there at Dragonstone. I don't think there's, a snowball's changed in hell that he bends the knee. My guess is that he actually says, he's not going to do it, but my guess is that he's going to volunteer to give up the title of King of the North if she helps him. And
it's not a title he cares about.
Yeah, that's my thing, but she don't know that. So I think he's going to play that against her and say, look, I'll give it up if you agree to help me. And if you help me, then, we'll figure this out from here. And that'll lead into, the end of the season where they make their way back to the wall and Cersei and they find proof, and that's where the season's going to end. That's my guess. Even though it's 6 episodes out, that's going to be my guess. Or 5 episodes out.
The big question is, how many bodies are we going to see drop before that consensus comes that they need to work together? Because every body they drop is a loss for the
probably a lot,
and a possible gain for the enemy's force.
I don't think it's going to be any major character. I think it's going to be a lot of the major fight scenes are going to be, if they try to take King's Landing, it's just going to be like soldiers, like peons and stuff, but no one actual of any significance. Only because we're so far into, to the end of the series that they can't really risk getting rid of anybody.
There's a few people that could still be weeded out. And we see that later in the episode. Before we get to that, though, over in Old Town, Sam finally meets Jorah. He'd kind of encountered him in the last episode very briefly. Jorah introduces himself as Jorah Mormont. Sam puts it together. This is Lord Commander Mormont's son. And even though his Grand Maester is saying Jorah is untreatable and that it's too dangerous to treat him with this other method that Sam finds, Sam decides that it's something that he's going to do because out of respect for his Lord Commander Mormont. So he ends up helping Jorah out in a very dangerous operation where he basically has to cut off Jorah's grayscale.
Yeah, he's a trooper, man. I don't know if I could be able to do that without just biting down on that knife. But Jorah, I gotta say, if I had to make like a mock, I want to say like a dungeon group up, to use a video game analogy, I think Jorah is going to be one of my DPS characters going right in there.
Yeah, definitely, right? This leads to a pretty disgusting scene transition, right? Where Samwell is poking, where he gets the layer of grayscale off, and then he goes in to poke at the layer underneath, and as he's going in, it cuts to somebody digging into like a meat pie or something, but it totally looks like pus and crap. And it's like, wow. I mean, that's the second time they did that last episode with the shit and
the poop soup montage.
The poop soup montage. I don't know why this is a thing this season with the Samwell Tarly scenes, but apparently it's a thing now.
Mike's got to get ready to get going, so I know the main topic he wanted to talk about, we're going to get right to that right now, is the attack on the Greyjoy fleet by Euron Greyjoy.
This is
just destroys Yara's fleet.
The big scene of the episode. This is the big showpiece of the episode.
T-6 down.
One thing I don't get is, why was his ship so silent? That's one thing I don't get.
How did he sneak up on them? I don't.
It's just a big ass ship too. It's not like some tiny paddle boat either.
No, it's like all I could think of is like Yara was incompetent, which.
Well, I mean, he was kind of the rightfully elected king, so anybody that left with Yara and Theon were basically kind of like probably the less loyal to the island of the group. Loyal to her,
right,
but less loyal to the island. You got to imagine they had the better soldiers. Euron's also kind of considered this like legendary seafaring commander who's kind of sailed like the whole world.
There's one question I want to know. It's kind of like the elephant in the room when it comes to Euron. When he first came back, obviously Theon and his sister, they jacked all the ships. They took all the ships and left. He shows up and he's like, "Build me 1,000 ships, and I'll get you King's Landing." First of all, one, they live on an island called the Iron Islands. There's not a single tree on the island. I don't know how they're building one ship, let alone 1,000 ships. But again, I guess it's Game of Thrones. It's just kind of, that's one of those things that always bugged me.
I guess you gotta roll with it. They have ships.
Yeah,
now.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There's a lot of time compression going on in the last couple seasons in particular.
Again, Theon, man, I thought he was coming back there at the end. I thought there was some hope for him with the fight scenes. He was taking people out left and right. I'm like, all right, Theon's actually, he's getting back to being Theon.
That's another example
it just
of how
full on reek again.
Game of Thrones likes to subvert your expectations. They like
you said it.
Yeah, that's half empty. The Game of Thrones loves doing this stuff. He reverts right back to reek. They set this up before it happens because before they're attacked, Yara is bragging about how Theon is her protector, and Theon's going to protect her if she's in danger.
Right.
You know, Yara's going on about that in a big way. And so when it comes time for Theon to actually do it, he reverts back to reek and chickens out and jumps right off the ship. Which was like the most disappointing scene of the episode for me.
It was a well-acted moment, though, seeing Theon kind of like seeing his face kind of shift in the reek.
I mean, like, then you see him flowing like Titanic style, like, you know, on the door, like the mast of the beam, like it was the end of the Titanic film. But I don't know. It's like, you know, I think they did that on purpose, like to almost say, okay, you know, maybe Theon will come back, maybe he'll float or find him at the end and help. And they got to do one way or the other. At this point, they either not show him fight again, or if they do, have him just kind of, you know,
at this point, I was
go for it.
At this point, I was disappointed he was still alive at the end of the episode.
Yeah.
I was so pissed off by that. I was like, okay, well, you are officially useless.
Mm-hmm.
Why are you still alive?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
So apparently, Mike, you're not a big fan of the sand snakes. So some of this last scene had to have some pleasure in it for you, as we lost 2 of them.
Yeah, they're kind of, I don't know, man. They're just, one, I liked it better as Colleen Wing and Iron Fist, to be honest, but I just, they never did anything for me. Like, I think the directors knew that, because they always try to, like, play them, like, halfway in between fighters and, you know, do, like, a stand-up comedy bit between the 2 sisters and the mom, and it never really seemed to jive. Like, they were kind of just thrown in, like, halfway in between each character.
I think the whole Dorne storyline, outside of Oberyn when he first came to King's Landing, the Dornish stuff just never really worked. I think it was kind of one of the biggest kind of failings of Game of Thrones, was getting that storyline to work. A lot of book fans were really into kind of like the idea of this Dornish master plan that was apparently behind the scenes. Last season, they killed off, you know, the King of Dorne and all of his progeny, basically saying like, okay, this is, you know, we're killing off the Dorne storyline. And now they just killed off, you know, the people that took out all of the other Dornish people were the Sand Snakes. They just took out 2 of the Sand Snakes, and now all we have left is Illyria Sand and the 3rd Sand Snake, Tyene. And the 2 of them, they're on their way to Cersei, where it would be very strange if they came out of this alive. Very unlikely.
Yes, you know, especially for their daughter and everything. I don't think that's going to happen. But.
Yeah, I mean, I said to Will, like, last week, I said, even if there's some kind of or not that last week, but earlier this week when we did our video talking about this scene, even if they did some kind of like a weird rescue maneuver, some kind of weird thing where they ended up escaping or something, it's very unlikely that they're all going to get out of it.
Right.
You know, it just kind of wouldn't make sense. It would be kind of unrealistic if they all managed to get out of there. So you have to imagine, even more so than Yara, that the Sand Snakes are doomed.
Yeah, I think so.
Pretty much. I think they're done. Dorne is done.
Yeah.
You know,
Dorne's done. We'll never see it again. We're probably never gonna see Essos again, which is, you know, where Bravos and Marine and all those places are. We're probably never gonna see that continent again.
Yeah,
they're really kind of contracting.
It's contracting fast. Yeah. As the series comes to a close, so is the number of players involved in it shrinking down.
Yeah, exactly.
Definitely. That's it for our Game of Thrones discussion this week. And so right now we're going to say goodbye to Mike, who joined us today to talk about Game of Thrones and then Comic-Con. So
Hi,
Mike, your Twitter handle is @_Pure Logic_, correct?
Correct. Pure Logic with underscore at the before and after.
And do you have anything else to plug before you go?
No, not at the moment right now. Figured I'd catch up with you guys on the next one. See what we're talking about.
Cool. So we'll talk to Mike another time on the podcast, and until then, we'll see you later, man.
All right, have a good night, guys.
Okay, so now we're going to talk about Twin Peaks, just Will and I here. We're talking about episode 11 of the third season, Twin Peaks Returns.
Yes.
A lot of stuff going on here. So a lot of those loose ends still kind of slowly being pulled back together.
Yeah, pretty much.
A little bit more weirdness than we've had in the last couple of weeks, a few more freaky scenes, which is I was kind of hoping for, so I'm glad we got some of those. Let's start off. Gordon, Albert, and kind of everyone in their crew in South Dakota are visiting the place that William Hastings, who is
he said
Matthew Lillard's character.
This is where he found the portal to the other side, or to the other world.
Yes.
They talked about.
So they're going to this place to try to find any kind of answers or clues they can. Gordon, as he approaches, he sees like a funnel in the sky or a spiral in the sky.
Right, yeah. He sees probably the vortex or the entrance to the other dimension.
He sees through it into like a room, like a stairway or something.
You see some of the smoke men.
Yeah, the coal miner woodsman guys. Yeah, the woodsman. Yeah. So he sees three of them in there on kind of like the stair rail. Albert kind of pulls him back. It looks like he's going to be kind of absorbed into the place.
Yeah, it looks like he's being absorbed, and Albert notices this apparently and like pulls him back.
We see one of the kind of the woodsmen, we see kind of throughout the scene, like it looks like he's kind of sneaking around the back of a building or something.
Right. Again, Albert and the chief notice the woodsman sneaking around, but I guess they assume it's just some hobo or something. They don't really make note of it, you know, other than to acknowledge that they saw him.
So this woodsman ends up kind of like popping in and out of reality, I guess, and ends up sneaking his way into the police car where they're holding William, and implodes his head. just smack. You just hear it, and it's so gross just hearing it. And the police officer in the car with him just freaks out, as I think more people on Twin Peaks should. This kind of stuff that happens on the show. He just kind of flips out, jumps out of his car, is kind of like screaming, "Oh my God! Oh my God!" And yeah, his head's exploded. We see Gordon and Albert they're like, "Oh, what's wrong here?" You know, and then Gordon makes the obvious observation of, "Oh, he's dead." As you see his half of his head missing.
Yep. Yep. Pretty disgusting sight. Again, Twin Peaks isn't shying away from the gore. We also find the woman's body.
Ruth. Yeah, they find Ruth's body. Before when they found her head with the general's body, and now you see Ruth's body.
Now we found her body, but we still haven't found the general's head.
Mm-hmm. She has coordinates on her arm though, and they take a picture of it. So next thing to talk about is good old Becky just goes nuts. She just flips out towards the beginning of the
Amanda Seyfried goes insane. Is basically what this, like, literally, like, when you say flip out, like, she goes completely mental.
Yeah, she calls her mom, then steals her mom's car. She's got a gun. She's going after her husband, Steven, who's abusive and does all this horrible stuff to her, but apparently the reason she's going after him is because of infidelity.
Right. Like, she's literally going to kill him.
Yeah. She goes to the apartment of the woman that he's sleeping with, shoots through her door a few times. We end up finding out for sure now, we know that her parents are Bobby and Shelley. And they're trying to kind of reason with her and saying, like, you know, you have to pay for the door. You know, Bobby's like, if I wasn't in the sheriff's department, you'd be in jail right now. They're kind of like working it all out. It seems like things are going, but she's still like protecting him. She's still like, oh, you know, he's just having a bad moment. Like, she's just tried to kill him. And she's still like kind of pulling back into the, you know, he's a good person on the inside thing, you know?
Right.
But the disturbing thing we see quickly in this scene is that Red, the magician, the coin trick drug dealer, as I had him listed in our show notes here.
Oh, coin trick drug dealer. That's a good one.
he shows up outside the window, is looking at Shelley.
That's
and
right.
kind of signals to her. Shelley is dating Red.
That's right. God. You know, the whole time I saw him, I totally forgot about him in like the previous episode. Like I didn't forget about him, but I totally forgot like what he looked like. It's up to the point where like I didn't even like recognize him when I seen that scene. To be fair, he only showed up once in the series so far. And so all I could say is, and I thought, I recognize that guy. Where's that guy from somewhere? Damn it. It's significant for some reason. And we're like, okay, yeah, oh, Jesus. So, so obviously this family has a bad habit these women have a bad habit of getting involved with bad men.
Yeah. So if you remember, I mean, Shelley, before she was going out with Bobby, who Bobby was a troublemaker himself in his youth.
Yes.
was married to Leo, who was a nightmare himself.
Leo was a nightmare himself. So it just seems like she just jumped from one bad man to another.
Yeah,
like,
and her daughter did the same thing.
These women know how to pick them, don't they?
Shelley comes back to the diner, and they're talking. Things seem to be going well, but suddenly gunshots are let loose. Everyone's kind of flipping out. Bobby tells everybody to get on the ground. He goes outside, pulls out his gun.
This leads to one of the strangest scenes in the entire episode.
Yeah.
I think probably one of the creepiest scenes, too.
Well, first off, Bobby goes out there. He finds out that there's like a family traveling in a minivan. And apparently the husband had packed his gun. The wife didn't know it was the gun and had just kind of pushed it back somewhere else. The kid found the gun and he's the one that fired it off.
Right.
Through the window of the minivan.
So it goes into the window of the diner.
Yeah. So this couple, they're kind of like fighting about it. The wife's just flipping out. The son just looks really kind of creepy and out of it. They can't really tell what's up with him, but Bobby's kind of looking at him and the kid's just staring him down. He's like some sociopath child or something. But Bobby ends up getting annoyed because there's a few cars kind of honking, including this one woman who is just honking relentlessly. And when another person from the sheriff's department shows up, he has him talk to the family, and he goes to tell this lady basically to shut up. And he goes to her car, and he's trying to talk to her, and she's flipping out, and she's just like...
She's in hysterics. She's flipping out. Like, she is like, sounds like the most obnoxious woman ever. And, everything seems pretty normal until the fucking zombie kid pops up. Like, right next, like she briefly mentions a kid being sick, and then right after she mentions it, like this kid rises up. I wouldn't even say get up. It like slowly like rises up.
It's like arching the back and rolling over.
Yeah.
It's weird.
It's weird. Like puking like green puke all over the place. It is very, very, very zombie-like.
Yeah, crawling over the top of the woman. And Bobby's just kind of like staring at
screaming, and Bobby's like kind of in shock. The woman's just screaming. This is like the most bizarre fucked up scene in the entire episode for me.
Yeah.
At least.
It's very unsettling.
Very unsettling. Again, it shows how like Lynch is like a mess. He went from a pretty mundane like scene, kind of like an odd scene involving this incident, but seemingly mundane, and he dove it right into horror, right there. Without you expecting it or seeing it coming,
and with no explanation after,
and with no explanation afterwards either.
It's just there.
It's just there. That just happened. That is that is right there. That is the beauty of Twin Peaks.
That's the kind of stuff I've been wanting for the last couple of weeks. We got a lot of that in episode 8. We got a lot of that in black and white in episode 8. And it's been a while since we've had something like really creepy since then. So, I was actually looking for something like that. So I'm glad we got it. Meanwhile, back at Twin Peaks Sheriff's Department, Hawk and Frank are discussing the location they're supposed to go to, that Major Breaks left behind for them, that they're going to go to, that Bobby's supposed to get them to. The area of the map that the coordinates lead to are like, there's no roads near there at all. It's just kind of like dense forest. And, Hawk pulls out this thing, he calls it a living map.
Yeah.
It's just like all always accurate or saying it's got these symbols on it. And, like, there's a symbol for fire, and there's a symbol for, like, wheat that's, like, gone black. And he says that that's a natural...
corn gone black.
Yeah, corn that's gone black.
Yeah.
And the corn going black and the fire together form this other symbol. It's like black
because
fire.
The corn, like, represents vitality, but black corn, but since it's black, that means that it's been subverted, and Hawk says that means death instead.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's a symbol for fire, and then there's black fire, which Hawk points out is the combination of the black corn and the fire symbol.
Mm-hmm.
So right after Hawk points that out about the black fire, he gets a call from the log lady, who starts warning him about fire.
Yeah, saying that where he's going, there's going to be fire.
Right. This is literally after Hawk gets done explaining the fire symbols. So, you know, that's a pretty bad omen right there.
I mean, on top of that, the map that he's looking at, when you look up between the Twin Peaks, there's this other symbol at the top of the map. He just says, you don't want to know what that symbol is to Frank.
Right. I was just going to mention
anything else. But that symbol is the one that was on the playing card that Evil Cooper was holding earlier in the season. It was like episode 2, I think, and it had the same symbol. Looks kind of like a mix between like an alien and like somebody wearing a jester's hat.
So if Hawk says you don't even know, so that symbol's really bad.
Yeah. So there's something going on with that as well that's pointed out. The other kind of main thing we have going on in this episode is the Mitchums, the casino developers, are planning to kill Dougie based on the information they got in the last episode, saying that Dougie not only was Mr. Jackpots, who took their casino for like $400,000, but also apparently it was and their claim. This is information that was falsely given to them by one of Dougie's coworkers. The guy that Dougie had said earlier when he talked to him, like in the board meeting,
right,
he was a liar. And pointed that out to him. So this guy is corrupt. He is a liar. Something up with him. He's tied to that Vegas guy that Evil Cooper seems to be in contact with.
Right.
We saw that in the last episode.
The Vegas guy working for Evil Cooper. Who's the one?
This was on the last episode. Yeah.
Yeah.
But that gives setup for why the Mitchums want to kill Dougie.
Right. They want to kill Dougie because they think he screwed them over. Because, you know, they're set up to believe that.
And they go about a very, like, kind of not necessarily that smart way of trying to kill him, which is just like sending a car to pick him up.
Well, they were going to they took him out in the desert and they were going to, you know, pretty standard mob hit.
Dougie's boss would know exactly who killed him if he just
if he didn't show up. Yeah, that's true.
It's kind of like not really a well thought out plan.
It's pretty sloppy on their end, yeah. But basically what happens is Dougie's set up to where he's talking to his boss. Well, he's not really talking to his boss. His boss is just talking. Dougie can't actually talk.
He just parrots every so often.
Like he's literally not there. But so his boss basically congratulates Dougie on unraveling a conspiracy. Which he didn't do, but okay.
But just by drawing on that paperwork or whatever.
Yeah, but by scribbling on paperwork, I guess. Yeah. But he gives Dougie, or, you know, he gives Dougie a check for the Mitchums for $30 million because he determined that there was no arson and that their claim was legitimate.
The Mitchum brothers claim, yeah.
Yeah, the Mitchum brothers claim was legitimate, which we know last episode they were told that Dougie set their claim up as arson to deny them, in order to get them to kill him. So that's why they're trying to kill him, because they think he screwed them out of $30 million, which they're gonna get. So
before Dougie gets into the car, though, he ends up seeing like a kind of a Black Lodge vision Philip Gerard, the one-armed man, kind of waving him towards him. And just like a dog, Dougie just kind of like glances over, sees him, and just starts walking in that direction. And in doing so, he ends up walking away with a box. So we see him walking with his box, and he's holding a box in his hand. We just have to wonder ourselves, what's in the box? What's in the box? He gets into the limo, the ride that the Mitchum sent. He goes out to the desert, and upon seeing him with the box, one of the Mitchums, Bradley, goes in talking about a dream he had. It's something we'd heard him talk about before, earlier in the episode, that he had this dream of killing Dougie, but he didn't elaborate on it. But now he's like, we might not be able to kill him. If what's in his box, if this one item is in that box, then we cannot kill him. He is not our enemy. And his brother's like, what the fuck are you talking about? And he's like, it's like 1,000,000 to 1 shot. But if this one item is in his box, we can't kill him. And so he whispers to his brother what that item is. His brother pulls out his gun, is walking towards Cooper and says, is that a cherry pie in that box? To which, Dougie, only parrot, says cherry pie. Bradley walks up, checks the box. It is indeed a cherry pie in the box.
Yep.
He checks Dougie's pockets. He frisks him and ends up finding the check for $30 million. So now, rather than killing Dougie, it's like they're Dougie's best friends.
Yeah. They're partying, they're celebrating with champagne and cherry pie at this fancy restaurant. Like one of the Mitchum brothers says, "This is damn good," and then Dougie says, "Damn good," which is yes, that is. The entire season was leading up to that moment.
We also see the lady approach him, talking about how Dougie changed her life. Mr. Jack, this is the old lady from the casino episode. Who looked just scummed out as hell. She just looked horrible, and now she's all elegantly dressed, and she's there with her son. She's like, my whole life changed.
Yeah, my whole life's changed. She's bragging to the Mitchums how Dougie saved her life.
And the Mitchums are just smiling yes, Dougie is the greatest.
Yes, Dougie is the greatest ever. Their whole attitude on him completely did a 180.
Oh yeah, they're running the Dougie fan club.
So another attempt by the evil Cooper to have Dougie or real Coop killed has failed.
I just love how Cooper just stumbles into perfection.
Yeah,
in every corner.
In every corner. Yeah.
Every slot machine handle he pulls wins. Every it's just constantly. It's he stumbles his way through. It's perfect. He accidentally he draws all over paperwork, and in doing so uncovers a vast conspiracy.
with a little help from the Black Lodge.
Yeah. Well, that seems to be all of it. The Black Lodge is basically protecting him by doing this kind of shit.
By doing this kind of shit. Yeah, exactly.
So there's two other kind of weird things I wanted to bring up. They were just kind of funny things that made me laugh in this episode. One is Carl Rod, who's the character. He seems to be one of the lodgemen now, or what did they call themselves in the first series that the sheriffs were all part of?
Oh geez, I forgot.
Or the something boys, or they had some name or something. There's a secret society that watched the woods or something. Well, apparently he's connected to them, and he's the guy that we've seen that saw the boy die and that was witnessing the domestic violence between Becky and Steven.
Oh, that's right. Yep.
So he helped Shelley when Shelley, after Becky had stolen Shelley's car, was giving her a ride and helping. But the hilarious thing was that when she asked for a ride, he said, sure, pulled out a pen whistle.
Right.
Blew it, and then an old VW hippie van pulled up.
I mean, I guess that's how he summons his ride. I don't know.
Which I just started busting up laughing when it happened. just like, only on Twin Peaks would this happen.
Yeah, only on Twin Peaks would that be a thing, right?
And the other thing I want to bring up is, and we already talked about this privately before we started the podcast, and it's the way that they've learned to maneuver Dougie at work by luring him with coffee.
Yes, that was a great scene because he calls Dougie, the boss there, he calls Dougie into his office. And then, and you know, Dougie's just not gonna just walk in. But right after he calls Dougie into his office, he gets a call from his assistant, you know, saying the coffee is on its way. And it's like, okay. And then we see him come in with the coffee, but very deliberately using it to lead Dougie into the room.
He's like stumbling forward with his hands outreach.
Outreach, like reaching for the coffee. Because Dougie loves that coffee. Let me tell you.
It's a damn good coffee.
It's damn good coffee. He gets it and he basically just shoves it in his face and it doesn't leave his face until it's gone.
So that's it for this week's discussion of Twin Peaks. We'll be talking about next week's episode next week, so tune in for that. In the meantime, we have some shows coming up in the next week to mention. Friday, July 28th, 2017. By the time this podcast is up, that'll be the date. Room 104 is coming to HBO, and The Last Tycoon is coming to Amazon. On Sunday, July 30th, 2017, Rick and Morty returns to Cartoon Network /Adult Swim, and Teen Wolf returns to MTV for, I believe, its final season. Then on Tuesday, August 1st, 2017, there's a mini-series on Discovery called Manhunt the Unabomber. That's about a manhunt for the Unabomber. It's very self-explanatory. On Wednesday, August 2nd, 2017, the new, I believe, Jessica Biel series, The Sinner, comes to USA. It's about a woman who just kind of snaps and murders somebody and doesn't know why she did it and kind of the investigation into like why she did it. And then on Thursday, August 3rd, 2017, The Guest Book comes to TBS. It's like an anthology series where people are staying at this cabin, and each person who stays like writes their story in the guest book. And so every episode is like, it's like a separate occupant story. It's got a lot of good comedy people in it, including like Danny Pudi from Community. So it looks pretty funny. It's continuing TBS's streak of doing some really kind of high concept comedy stuff. On the same day, What Would Diplo Do comes to Viceland. This is their first scripted series, and it's James Vanderbeek starring as real life DJ Diplo, and it's about him. It's about DJ Diplo as portrayed by James Vanderbeek, and it's on Viceland for some reason. Very, very odd. Friday, August 4th, 2017, two really funny looking shows. One we know is going to be funny because precedent's been set before, and that is Wet Hot American Summer 10 Years Later, which comes to Netflix. And the other is a series called Comrade Detective, which is coming to Amazon, which is really fun. It's like a Cold War era detective series from like Russia that's like dubbed into English or something. It's not a real series. It's fake. They like recreated this fake series or something. Basically the joke is that it's like Cold War era. So it's like basically it's actually like communist propaganda, but it's like dubbed over into English and brought over here like as if it's like this real thing, but it's not. So that's coming to Amazon on August 4th. So both shows look pretty funny. Wet Hot American Summer, we pretty much know is going to be funny because, you know, we've seen other Wet Hot American Summer shows and loved them. So that is it for the show. You can reach me on Twitter. I am at Tyson Gifford. You can reach Will on Twitter. He is at Voxel Hero. We had Mike on earlier in this episode. He is at _Pure Logic _. You can check out our Facebook page and our YouTube channel as well as our site, TVEnthusiast.com. You can subscribe to our podcast through any major podcast client like iTunes or Pocket Cast, and the entire backlog of our podcast is available on our YouTube channel. Thank you everybody for tuning in. Good night.
Good night.
If you would like to voice your opinion, send an email to theweeklyset@TVEnthusiast.com. TV Enthusiast is a part of the Enthusiast Media Network. Stay tuned to TV Enthusiast and the Weekly Set podcast for more coverage of all